with another motherboard video. Do you think it's too many?
Yes.
It is too many.
Yes.
I also don't care because this motherboard, I feel, is one of the most interesting Z590 boards that we've checked out so far because of its Thunderbolt 4 ports, which I thought you guys might actually find interesting as well. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna check out this brand new Gigabyte board, the Gigabyte Z590I Vision D. And remember, ladies and gents, with videos like this video is not a review. So let's jump right in. Somehow the cat just likes sitting up here when I'm trying to make videos. I'm just gonna leave her. And remember guys, this video is not a review, it's just an overview so we can take a look at all the things on this board and what physically comes in the box when you buy a brand new motherboard. So what do you reckon, Bindi? You reckon it's time? Of course you do. All right, let's jump in. All right, ladies and gents, let's take a bit of a close look at the Gigabyte Z590I Vision D. But first of all, we need to get the motherboard out of the box so we can take a bit of a closer look at all of the things that come with this board. And yes, we're doing this differently today. It's not really a voiceover, but it is. Anyway, let's get that out of the way. Let's have a bit of a squiz, shall we? Alrighty, first up, we've got these. These are PWM breakout cables. The reason why they have these connectors on them is so it takes up less surface space on the board, and it actually is nice to have like these type of breakout situations for these small form factor motherboards. I do like them like this. Next up is the screws and standoffs for the M.2 slots on this board, which we're going to take a little bit of a closer look at a little bit later on in the video. There's also the included Wi-Fi 6E antenna for the built-in Wi-Fi 6E on this motherboard and the Bluetooth as well. We do get a lot of questions about people asking if boards have Bluetooth, but most Wi-Fi boards also do include Bluetooth connectivity. There's also a set of SATA or SATA cables for your 2.5-inch SSDs or your spinning rush drives. There's a 4-pin RGB extension cable. This is for 12-volt RGB, not addressable RGB. There's also the user manual. The user manual is pretty handy if you've never built before or if you've built heaps of PCs before. It basically just has a bunch of things that show you where everything is in the BIOS, what everything is on the board. And yeah, if you're building with a board like this, I would suggest using this. And last but not least is the most confusing part of this whole part of the video. This plastic round disc. I don't know why they included this with the small form factor board, considering most small form factor builds will never have an optical drive. So just use this as a coaster or throw it in the bin. All right, party people, let's unsheath the Z590I Vision D from Gigabyte so we can take a little bit of a closer look at this very, very interesting ITX motherboard. Let's check it out. There's a front panel connector for all your lights and all your switches and all that jazz up the front. There's a USB 2.0 header. There's a USB Type-C header. There's a USB 3.0 header. There's a 4-pin 12-volt RGB header. There is 4 SATA or SATA ports for your 2.5-inch SSDs or your spinning rush drives, and a 24-pin power connector to send juice to your brand new Z590I Vision D. Across the top of the board, there are 3 PWM breakout connectors. There's also an additional PWM fan header on the other side, next to the 8-pin EPS power connector for your CPU power. Along the bottom of the board, there's a 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB header and a full by 16 PCIe Gen 4.0 slot as well for your GPU. In terms of VRM layout, I'm guessing this is the same as the Aorus Ultra. It'll be an 8+ 2-phase digital VRM setup with 90 amp power stages. You can also see there is a heat pipe that's connecting both of the heat sinks for the VRM cooling here. Because this is a Z590 board, it features Intel's LGA 1200 socket, which is compatible with both 11th and 10th gen Intel CPUs. It also has standard Intel cooler mounting. If we flip the board over, you can see that there's also a full cover back plate and another M.2 slot on the back of the board. Now the M.2 slot back here is PCIe Gen 3. We'll take a look at the PCIe Gen 4 one in a moment. There's 2 DDR4 RAM slots which support a total of 64 gigs of memory with speeds up to 4666 megahertz overclocked. Alright, let's take the heat sinks off the top of the board so we can take just a little bit of a look at the M.2 slot up top. The M.2 slot that you're seeing on the front of the board is a full PCIe Gen 4 M.2 slot, which is wired directly into the CPU. Now, to be able to get PCIe Gen 4 speed, you will need an 11th gen Intel CPU. There's a DisplayPort in connector which allows you to connect your graphics card into your motherboard to pass it through Thunderbolt, because this motherboard has 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports integrated, as well as a line out and microphone input for audio. There's a Q flash button for flashing the BIOS. There's a bunch of USB 3.2 ports. There's antenna connectors for the built-in Wi-Fi 6E and the Bluetooth 5.1, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, and some more USB ports. There's also an integrated I/O shield as well. All right, ladies and gents, hope you enjoyed this first look and overview of the Gigabyte Z590I Vision D. As I mentioned in the intro, this is one of the more interesting Z590 boards because of the inclusion of dual Thunderbolt 4.0. Now, this might not be useful to many people out there, but for content creation and more specifically audio production and music production, this board I feel like is going to be quite sought after. Now, if you're wondering about the price of these boards, you can actually buy most of these Z590 boards now. In the US, this board is going for around $350 US, or in the land down under, otherwise known as Australia, it's going for around 500 Australian dollars at the time of filming these videos. And like I already said, like as of making this one right here, this board is available for purchase. You can buy them. I've seen stock levels are fairly decent for these boards. So yeah, Z590 is already here. 11th gen's not too far away, only a couple weeks away now. We should have full reviews and everything of the CPUs and all that. Once we're allowed to share more details with all of that jazz, we will definitely be sharing that with you guys. I feel like this generation is going to be a bit more interesting than 10th gen, given the inclusion of stuff like PCIe Gen 4. For me personally, PCIe Gen 4 is important for storage. I use it for video editing, like all of our scratch discs and everything that we use to actually make these videos is all Gen 4, has been for a few years now. I feel like now that Intel's come to the party with PCIe Gen 4, we're gonna have quite a lot of interesting content creation related content coming out really shortly too. And I feel like it's something that has been lacking on a competitive kind of aspect with PCIe Gen 4, given what AMD did with X570 and B550. So yeah, this is actually looking like it's going to be a bit more interesting than 10th gen. I already said that, right? I also wanted to add that I know we've been doing a lot of Z590 motherboard content. The thing is, anytime a new CPU generation comes out with new motherboards, we always do this. This isn't unusual for us. So even when X570 came out, we did the same thing. B550, we did the same thing. Z490, we did the same thing. We basically do this for every generation because when people come to search for this information later, even though a lot of the stuff isn't available, it's going to be much more handy down the line. Which leads me into the last thing I wanted to talk about in this video. Well, one of the last things anyway. We're starting an educational series for people who've never built PCs before. We're going to show you how to socket CPUs, do all the really, really basic stuff because you guys have been asking us for it. And there's lots of content around the internet that already shows this, but I feel like we could probably do it a bit more justice to make it a little bit easier to understand and actually explain why things are the way they are as well, because it might be handy for those out there, again, who have never ever done it. I think that's basically all I've got to say about everything and the Z590i Vision D. Let us know what you think of this board. I actually think this is going to be quite interesting. I've got a nice white ITX build planned with this that will be coming out pretty soon. I think it's going to be real nice. I think you guys are going to rather like what we've got planned with this thing. And if you like the music you heard here, I make all the music is available over on Patreon. You want to get early access to videos like this, it's over on Floatplane. Also, my personal channel is back up and running. It's all skateboarding content. There's a link in the description if you want to go and subscribe to that and check out my weekly skateboarding antics. Once again, thank you so very much for watching. I'm your boy Nick with Gear Seekers. You peek, we seek. And as usual, ladies and gents, it's time to engage cinematic mode. Enjoy. Thanks for watching.